My feet were hurting, my legs were hurting, my shoulders were hurting. I could feel the rocks on my elbows, and I have really bony elbows, so like that hurt, and it definitely, I felt like I gave up. Like in that moment, I was just like, you know, F this. I don't want to do it. And I think for a good couple seconds, I just lay there and I was like, they'll just fail me right here and then, and I'll be okay with that.
I just got a text from my NCOs stating that if I was aware that I was competing, I was like, competing on what? You know, as a soldier, you are expected to be physically fit. I work out, so I think that kind of helped me out in the way of not being burned out too quickly.
It did take me a little bit by surprise, I guess, because by the time I had already ran and I had the kit, it was definitely harder than doing it like on a gym floor like I've practiced before. So going into the wet grass and having my uniform all wet and all my gear on, it definitely got to a point where I was like, excuse my language, damn, this is hard.
Alright, you'll take the play right here. 16 over.
Based off of how tired you are, it may not look like a high crawl, but you're doing the high crawl to speed up the process. Now, if they're doing a low crawl, that's because they're gassed. I mean, you'll see me out there doing the low crawl. Especially on the way down from the lever, it was extremely tiring. Making sure that all of my body parts were in the right spot and firm to be able to navigate myself how I was without falling was a lot more tiring than it looked. And then having to sprint like 400 meters to the finish line.
My motivation definitely went down a little bit by then, because I knew the ruck was coming up, and I was like, you know, I was already nervous about the ruck. Didn't do as well as the other competitors. Definitely brought my motivation down.
Being an unknown distance ruck, you don't know how far you're going to be walking. Now, it can be anywhere from 10 to 18 miles that you'll be walking. We don't know how far we're going, and especially after doing an obstacle course as hard as you could, where you couldn't even run the last 400 meters straight. And I will say, that is by far the hardest route I have done since I've been in the Army. This one was really rough because I don't think there was a single stretch in the first 10.5 miles that was flat for more than 200 meters. It was up and down the whole time. Me and Sergeant Thomas actually counted, I think, like 6 hills just on the way back that took us longer than like 2.5 minutes to reach the peak. And we would think that there's, you know, going uphill, there's a downhill. Well, you would get to the top of the super, super big hill, and then there would be a whole bunch of little hills that you'd have to go on. And then maybe like a mile down the road, then you would get your downhill.
I knew I was going to be able to obviously start off in the beginning, but my biggest worry was that I wasn't going to be able to keep the pace. And once I stopped thinking that, then my next thought was, am I even going to finish? I think we were about 40 minutes out when I started realizing, yeah, I'm not going to make it on time. So at that point, my mentality changed from just finish. Instead of focusing on the time, my goal was just to finish and not give up. Because once I accepted that I wasn't going to make the time, I did not want to give up because I had already gone through so far and I had already gone through this pain. And in my head, I was telling myself I didn't go through all this just to not make it, just to quit whenever it got hard.
I'm glad to see that we have soldiers willing to go through that, because it's not easy asking someone to do that, to go through a whole slog like that. And so I'm proud of everybody who volunteered to go through that.
Hey man, you good?
And even if they didn't really volunteer, I'm proud that they went through that, and I'm proud that I get to serve with them.
Break. Viper 6, this is Lifeline 1, conducting a radio check, over.
By the time I finished and I got that rug off of me, I was checked out. I was like, I don't care what happens afterwards. I don't want to do this. I'm done. I had given up. It definitely had me upset a little bit. So that, on top of being physically tired, mentally tired, I definitely didn't care. I gave up. I kept going because in my head I was like, there's no way that I just made it to a 12-mile ruck and I can't finish a 50-meter low crawl, 25-meter low crawl. I guess that's kind of the only reason why I finished, because it just, in my head, it's like, there's no way. Like, this is so small compared to what I just did for 4.5 hours. I think I can low crawl do this for like 5-10 more seconds. I knew I wasn't going to be the best of the best, but regardless of how day 2 went overall, it makes me proud that I was able to actually take in all this knowledge that I learned, go through the experience, knowing that I finished when in the beginning I didn't know if I was even going to finish. It makes me realize that I can really do anything if I put my mind to it. Even if maybe I'm not the best of the best or I'm not first place, because at the end of the day, I did better than the expectations I set for myself.